Welcome to Tales on the Towpath, the podcast where every mile tells a story.
We're two runners who spend a lot of time out here on the C&O Canal Towpath, talking about training, racing, and everything that happens between the miles.
From early morning runs to the stories that keep us moving.
This is where endurance meets inspiration, one step, one tail at a time.
So lace up and join us on the path, because every trail has a story, and this one's ours.
Welcome back. I'm Adam Lowe.
Hey, and I'm Chris Earl. Good to see everybody again. Happy New Year, Adam.
Happy New Year, Chris. How was your last week of running or so since we've last done the podcast been going?
Yeah, so it's been good. It's been a little hectic between the holidays and getting called into work. My goal for the year, as you know, was to get to 3,000 miles, which I did, and I'm really happy about that. But I got there early enough in December that, of course, that meant I had to readjust my goal, and I reset it to 3,200. And that looked pretty easy back on the 12th or 13th of December when I did that. But here we are with 2.5 days to go, and I'm sitting at 3,177 miles. So I'm going to try to get 23 miles in here over the next 2.5 days and see if I can close this out. So how about you?
Well, isn't it always funny how you reached a goal that you set for yourself about a month ago? So instead of just being satisfied, you decided to make the goal harder, right? But then when obstacles came in the way to, kind of make that goal seem impossible, instead of going, okay, well, I've already hit a goal, so I should just be happy with that and just readjust to be satisfied. You're like, no, I'm doubling down. I'm getting the A plus goal now, right? To keep going and get 3,200.
It definitely is, right? And I'll be disappointed if something comes up and I don't get it, even though I'm 177 miles above where I wanted to be a year ago at this point. And, if I think back and compare it to last year I just barely cracked 2,800. So 3,200 is a solid 400 miles more than what I did in 2024. So I should be a little bit easier on myself, but, got to keep pushing.
Right. So I've been running quite a few miles the last week or so as well, trying to get to my goal for the year, which was at the beginning. See, I did the opposite of you. At the beginning of the year, I set my goal at 4,500 miles, and I had to readjust after July. So I brought it back down to 4,000 miles, and now after today's run, I'm 15 miles away. So pretty confident I'll be able to get to 4,000 in the next 2.5 days. And that'll be the second year in a row that I've reached 4,000 miles. So I'm pretty happy with that. Yeah, this past week has been fun. I've started to listen to my physical therapist and done some leg exercises along with my push-ups that I've been doing. So it's been kind of fun to get back in there and give those a try. And then you and I went to the track was that Saturday? And we ran with the FAFO group. They had about 6 people that came out plus us, and they were all doing speed work. And Chris and I were in lanes 5 and 6 doing a 10-mile easy run on the outside there. And then about mile 6, I think I said, Chris, you want to join in? So Chris and I threw ourselves in for 400s real quick, and then we were back to running slow on the outside to get back to 10 miles. But
again, just like you were saying earlier, we had an easy goal of just run 10 miles on Saturday, and what we do, we went and made it harder on ourselves because we were feeling guilty about watching everybody else run speed while we were just tooling around in the outside lanes.
Right. Everybody else is in there working hard, and Samir was there, and he's telling me, pretty much giving me the evil eye because I coached Samir this year and I prescribed speed work a lot for him, and then I didn't do it. So, but it was good. And then, to see Katie and Kara and Taylor and Carissa and Jeff out there all running, doing 400s and 800s. And so it kind of kicked us a little bit, and we decided to give it a go. So that was a lot of fun, that Saturday run on the track there. But yeah, that's pretty much been this last few days, just getting in the miles when we can, I think. And what did we run on the canal the other day? 10 miles with Samir. No, with Luke. Luke and
Or yeah, with Luke and Samir, and a couple days before that, we did a half marathon so that you could get your Strava badge. We did that one of the mornings, so that was good.
yeah. Yep, yep. Yeah, so no fish were found on any runs in the last 10 days, but there's been some good conversations for sure. So, but we figured today's episode would be about 2025, a little reflection for Chris and I, and then at the very end, maybe a little lead up into what we would like to get done in 2026 running wise. So Chris, I'll just go ahead and give a quick little update, I guess, for 2025. I mean, I came in and I had some pretty big goals that I wanted to accomplish. One of my goals was to run every day for the entire year, and I was able to keep that run streak alive. So I'm now over 1,000 days total for doing the run streak. So I was able to keep that alive. And then Chris and I have a little cloud splitter challenge still going from last year's December, where we're doing 100 push-ups a day. So one of my goals was to do that each day this year, and so far so good, although I just remember now that I have not done them for today. So I
Haven't
need to
either.
jump on board. I need to jump on board and do those push-ups for today. Another one of my goals was to get 2,000 feet of elevation gain, which, if anyone knows anything about me, and Chris does, is that I try to avoid hills. And we started off so strong in January because the towpath was covered with ice and snow that we ran a lot on Sawmill Road. But I'm happy to say though that I'm gonna end the year with about 110,000 feet, and that is the most elevation gain I've ever gotten in a year. So just about 90,000 feet short. I almost had it. Go ahead, Chris.
So I was gonna say you had a little Freudian slip there when you said what your goal was. You said 2,000 feet, and for people who know
I
you,
meant
that might actually have been a real goal.
yeah, okay, sorry. My goal was 200,000 feet, not 2,000. I probably could have accomplished that one in maybe the fourth week of January. But Chris, what was your elevation goal for the year? Because I know you had one as well.
Yeah, so I set mine at 150,000, and I was pretty diligent about making sure I got about 3,000 feet every week. Some weeks were a little more, some weeks were a little less, but I actually was tracking it each week so I wouldn't get too far behind. And I accomplished that again in like mid December. Did not set an additional goal on top of that one. I've been happy just to sit back and watch that pile up. I'm at about 158 right now.
Okay. Yeah, that's pretty impressive. I usually don't pay too much attention to elevation when I go out to run. Like if I have time, I'm going to go to the towpath, and if not, I'm going to go in my neighborhood and just run my usual route. But I think you and Luke were setting elevation goals at the end of last year, and I kind of got a little itchy there, and I was like, man, if I had 100,000 this year, I could man up and do 200,000 next year, and I did not do that. So that was good stuff though. And we just talked about our mileage goals. I think we're both going to get there. You're going to hit your AA goal, and I'm going to hit my, I guess technically my B goal, but 4,000 miles for 2 straight years. I'm not disappointed in that. Another goal that I had was to get to 300 miles each month, and I've done that. So that this December was actually my 30th straight month hitting 300 miles. So yeah, it's been a long, consistent journey there. I have a couple more goals, and if you're still paying attention, you'll notice that I I hit about half of them so far, but this is where it goes downhill. I wanted to join at least 3 runners when they were doing either FKTs, or I wanted to pace people 3 times, and I was only able to do that once. So my schedule didn't work out with some of the other FKTs around in the area or with people pacing. So I'll probably put that goal back on the schedule for next year, try to get out for 3 times. JFK, I had a goal of going sub 6:30, and I went 6:46. The Canal 100, I had a goal for that, and then I decided to not race it because I was doing a marathon goal at the same time. So my last goal of the year was to do 14 official marathons, and I only did 11. So I did not hit that goal either. Only, right?
Only 11.
Right. So last year I had a goal of like a marathon a month, but it didn't have to be a race. So I figured if I could do that, I could race like the 14. And actually the purpose behind that was to make Marine Corps my 50th official marathon on the 50th Marine Corps. And I think when I ran Marine Corps, I was at 46. So now I have 47 official. So yeah, so I didn't make that one either, but I gave it a good run in April and May, which we'll talk about later. So all right, Chris, go ahead. What other goals did you have for this year?
Hey, before we move on to that though, I just wanted
Oh,
to flag for everybody that you did actually run the marathon distance 14 times in competition, right?
oh yeah.
Because if you were to throw
Oh
your
yeah.
ultras in there, that would have got you there. But you know, you and I have talked about this. We don't really count that unless it's an official marathon distance, right?
Yes. Yeah, so I ran 11 official marathons and then like four other races that were also above the marathon like distance, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, thanks for a little caveat, but yeah, I still don't count those
I know.
for that. So,
I wouldn't count them in my totals either, but you did at least get that distance, and it's worth noting for everybody. So much like you, I set some lofty goals at the beginning of the year, and some of them I achieved, and some of them I'm not going to make this year. We talked about the distance goal and the elevation goal, so those were both good for me. But independently, I sent a goal of 250 miles every month, which would have gotten me to 3,000. Think I had 2 months where I didn't quite get there, got to like 245 or something like that, and that was pushing it to get to 245. So fortunately, I had some other months where I was way above the 250, and it worked out for the year. I also had a goal of running every day in 2025, and unfortunately, I happened to get COVID right in the middle of the year, right back in June, and so I had to restart that daily streak goal in June. I think I'm at day 195 right now. So I'll keep going and hopefully keep going and get every day in 2026. I missed that one by 2 days in 2025. Also doing the cloud splitter push-up challenge. COVID got me on the push-ups for those 2 days too. I was really sick, and I couldn't even do push-ups. That's how sick I was. So, but I'm back on the wagon for that and enjoying that. And then one thing we haven't talked about yet on here is this dumb challenge idea I came up with in December to do the December burpee calendar challenge, where depending on the day of the month, that's how many burpees I would do. And so it was real easy that first week in December doing 1, 2, 3 burpees a day. But now that here we are on the 29th of December, I am not looking forward to my burpees today. But 3 more days, I'll power through.
I think the calendar club challenge I did last year was easier than your burpee challenge.
Yeah, 3.5 minutes straight of burpees is getting old, but 3 more days and then we'll take a little break. So, but I'm glad to have you along on that challenge. And then there have been a few other folks in the community that when they heard I was doing it have joined in. So it's been fun keeping up with them and hearing everybody struggle together on those.
Hang on, Chris.
Yeah.
While we're talking about daily challenges, I think we'd be a little remiss if you didn't talk about your Christmas Advent cocktail challenge you did. That was pretty impressive.
Yeah, so back before I moved to West Virginia, we had a pretty good group of friends at work that during the month of December, instead of doing a Christmas Advent with like candy or things like that, we did the 24 days of cheer. And we would get 12 people. You would each buy two 12 packs of beer and bring them in, and then we would divide them up, and then everybody would get 24 different beers. And so every day of the month leading up to Christmas, we would do the beer Advent. Well, when I got here, it was a little too far away from that old group of friends to keep that going. So this month, Megan and I decided we were going to do a Christmas cocktail Advent. And so every day for the month of December, I made a new cocktail, and gave me an opportunity to try some things I wouldn't have tried before and experiment a little bit. So that was a lot of fun. Had some fun making some crazy garnish things, and just trying different drinks, but yeah, it was fun. So
Yeah, some of your pictures definitely look good on Instagram. So
yeah, if anybody wants to check those out, you can go check out my personal Instagram account, CEPHOTOG, CE Photog, and you can see those pictures if you're interested. Definitely no running content over there. But back to sort of my year in review. Normally, I don't run a ton of races. I think the last couple of years it's probably been 10 or 11 races a year. This year, I really stepped up because back in April, I was training real hard for the Salisbury Marathon. And because I knew I wasn't going to do a lot of speed work on my own, I decided to try to race myself into shape. And so I stacked up some spring races to help get me ready for that, to try to make that Boston Marathon qualifying time. And then I did it again this fall as I was getting ready for Lock to Lock and JFK. So in total in 2025, I think I ran 23 races. I counted up yesterday for a total of 323 miles of racing, which I thought was pretty impressive for me. I was pretty happy with that. Out of those 23 races, 4 of them were ultras. I did the last one standing backyard challenge ultra marathon. I did the final countdown, Cacapen 12-hour challenge, and then of course JFK. Those were my 4 ultras. In addition to those, I did 3 full marathons and 3 half marathons. And for me, had a pretty successful year. I had 1 overall win in a 5K, which was nice, a nice little small winery 5K, but still it was fun to lead from wire to wire. And in the other races, I had 1 podium, a top 3 finish at the final countdown. I took 3 Masters age group wins this year and 8 additional age group wins. So I was pretty happy with how successful my racing season was. And it's probably directly proportional to this being one of my mileage years. But, anyway, it's still good to, at 52 years old to get out there and be competitive and run against other guys my age and be competitive with them. So all that said, I will also highlight that I did have one pretty major bonk at the Lock to Lock marathon. The heat and dehydration hit me hard, and it was a little disappointing knowing that I was, had set that as my goal to run a really fast Boston Marathon qualifying time and try to get under the buffer, but it just was not my day. And so the other 2 marathons were fine. Both of those were Boston qualifying times. We'll see if Marine Corps holds up and gets me into the buffer for 2026, but we'll see what happens. So how about you?
well, I want to go back to your quote unquote bunk there. So yeah, a lot of people, I guess, bunked at Lock to Lock, right? Or didn't have the day that they expected. And I think a lot of that was it was very humid that morning. And if you didn't adjust your pace at the beginning, I think that's where we saw a lot of people struggle at the end of the marathon. You could almost get away with it, or you could for sure probably get away with it in the 10K. In the half marathon, I think it creeped up on a few people there, Katie being one of those people, and a few other people, that last 11, 12, and 13 mile. But yeah, marathon, if you didn't, go out a little slower than your goal pace, you were probably suffering at the end there.
Mother Nature really, really played a hard trick on us for that race, because in the week leading up to it, it was cool and crisp in the mornings, and it was forecast to be cool and crisp for the marathon, and it did not play out that way. We woke up that morning, I think it was 70 degrees and 85% humidity, and it didn't get any cooler from there.
Yeah, it sure didn't. So yeah, but I mean, anybody who stuck it out and finished that day, props to them for. I mean, I guess the good thing with Lock to Lock is if you turn around and go back out, you're kind of committed, right? There's no easy way to get you off the towpath. So well designed by me to encourage people to make it back to the start line. So
Short of a rescue boat, there's no way, right?
right, right. Yeah, so my year, well, actually, Chris, I have one more thing about your year. We talked about this on text message. So I think you were very close to getting podium on another two or three races. Is that right? But there was like a certain two people maybe who prevented that from happening. Did you want to explain that a little
Yeah,
bit?
I forgot to mention, I would have probably podiumed in 3 other races if it weren't for guys with the last name of Lowe. I think I think Adam, you got me in 2 of the 5Ks, and Ryan got me in the 10K, so that was just enough, but
And I think when you texted that to me, I had a pretty good saying for you, and I said, "Oh, I should have brought it up." What did I say? I
oh,
said,
yeah, your response was, "Don't be mad, just run faster."
"Oh yes, that's right. Don't be mad. Just go faster. That's all you got to do, right?" So, but good stuff. No man, you had a great year, and it was a lot of fun sharing miles with you on the towpath, and then seeing you at a ton of these races that we were at as well. So, just like Chris, I raced a lot this year as well. I did 27 races. So, and I think two of those races were Tulo events. So make that 25 races plus we put on 7 races and we helped out with 3 others. So we probably spent about 38 or 39 weekends out there at races this year. Yes, it was very busy. But yeah, I ran in 27 races, which is the most that I've ever run in as well. Last year I was at 24, I think. I had a pretty successful year for me. It wasn't pain free, but I was able to run hard when needed, and I did win 6 races. 2 of those were beer miles. 2 of those were marathons. The Ohio Indoor Marathon, which I'm doing again this January, and then Freedom's Run Marathon. And then I won the Lock to Lock 10K, which is one of Katie and I's races. And then I was able to outlast Chris and Samir in the final countdown. I had a lot of nervous energy going into final countdown with it being the first year. Wasn't sure if I was going to be able to run it or not. Everything seemed like it was taken care of at the start, so I was able to start running, and then just knowing that I would need to stop if something went wrong on the course or something, but luckily everything went well that day, so I was able to stay out there and keep running. So those are my 6 wins that I had this year, and like we said, I ran 11 marathons, 15 marathons or more, and then I had almost 525 miles of racing this year. So yeah, that was pretty good, the most I've ever had in one year. I try to do I was telling Chris this the other day. I try to do like a big, maybe not project's the right word, but like one kind of goal, major focus for the year. And for me this year, that was 6 weeks of April and then the first week of May there. So those 6 weeks, 30 days, I did 6 marathons and I raced them all. A couple of them kind of fell into our lap. I was trying to find marathons to do to get to 14 for the year, and it seems like all the marathons are in April and May. So I just said, well, I'll figure it out and see if I can do all of them. So we lucked into Blue Ridge Marathon. We won a Strava challenge by the brand Recover, so we actually got to race that for free. But we ended up doing, and I say we because Katie did the half marathons at all of these. Well, I guess 4 of the 6. So we were together and we raced. I raced the Salisbury Marathon, and then the next day that night we drove to Delaware, and I woke up and ran the Delaware Marathon. So did back-to-back marathons, 250 at Salisbury and then 314 at Delaware the next day. So that was a pretty tough back-to-back. I actually never had raced back-to-back marathons before. I don't necessarily recommend it, although it was fun. I enjoyed the challenge, and I enjoyed the pain and suffering from it. And then what, 6 days later, I did Blue Ridge Marathon, which is America's toughest road marathon, and the mountains are just brutal. That's probably where almost half of my elevation came from for the year. So, and then what would it be, about 9 days later, I ran Boston, ran 252. And then 6 days later, Gettysburg Marathon, I ran 301. And then 7 days later, I went to Pittsburgh and ran 3 hours and 8 seconds. And the worst part about that, running 3 hours and 8 seconds, was I wore brand new Speed fours, so they're like not carbon plated. And I was like, if I just would have had a pair of carbon plated shoes, I would have went under 3 hours. And then, I started thinking, I'm never going to go sub 3 again. That was my last chance. And then luckily I did that later at Marine Corps, but that's just the way my brain works. So yeah, that was like my big project for this year, was that April and May, 6 marathons in 30 days. And the goal was like to race them all. So I was pretty happy with that little span. And then I came out of that pretty healthy. So yeah, that was a lot of fun.
So if you had to pick one of your races, which one would you say you're most proud of this year?
Oh man, that's a good question. I think it would probably be the Marine Corps Marathon. I think that one, I wasn't 100% sure how it would go. And we had just done Freedom's Marathon, and I kind of was thankful that day that there was no one there to really challenge me after about 8 miles. The goal going into Freedoms was to win, but to be comfortable and run it around 3 hours. So I was able to do that. But yeah, I mean, going into Marine Corps, I really, really wanted to be under 250, and I ran 252. So I know I didn't accomplish what I wanted to, but it was still a really good race. And how we talked about this before on the Marine Corps podcast, about how much stress it was leading up to the race that morning, and then to actually just be able to go and race and kind of not know what the legs were going to be able to do that day. So I would say that would be my race that I was most proud of for the year. That and the Winchester Beer Mile, where I PR'd.
Nice, nice.
How about you, Chris?
Yeah, for me, the race I was most proud of was my performance at Final Countdown. I really wasn't sure how that was going to go. It's not often that you go out and you run really slow for a long, long period of time and then ask your legs to go faster and faster and faster as you get deeper and deeper into the race. And there was some really good competition from my perspective there at the race, and for me to outlast some really strong runners and end up third on the podium, for me, that was the one I was most proud of as far as my overall performance. And then the second race I wanted to just touch on real quick was also Marine Corps for me. Following Lock to Lock, like you said, you thought you'd never run 3 hours again. After I ran Lock to Lock, which was my slowest marathon ever, I was like, I don't know that I ever want to run a marathon again. I don't know that I'll ever break 3:30 again. Blah, blah, all these negative thoughts running through my head. And, even when I towed the line, I wasn't really sure what I was going to do that day, whether I was going to try to hang with the pace group or whether I was just going to take in the sights and enjoy the day and, make that my last marathon ever. But I'm so thankful that I had a good pace group to run with, that I was able to hang right with them. We hit those splits as we talked about, boom, 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 all of them right on the money. And it got me excited about running marathons again. So that would be a close second for race I was most proud of.
Good. Yeah, I mean, I think like you said, it's hard to, when you technically fail at a goal, right? Like you did at Lock to Lock, and you didn't accomplish what you wanted to. It does, like, even with us more experienced runners, it does kind of like knock you down a peg a little bit, right? And it puts that doubt in the back of your head, and you go, wait a minute, like, I trained for months for this day and I didn't accomplish what I was going to do. And now what if that was my last chance, right? So like, how are you able to rebuild from Lock to Lock? Was September, I should know this, right? September 9th or 10th or something. And Marine, well, here I can tell you.
I think it
And
was weeks,
Marine,
right? 6 or 7
yeah,
weeks
yeah.
between
So
the 2?
Lock to Lock was September 6th, and Marine Corps was October 26th. So yeah, there's only 5, 6 weeks in there. So how did you bounce back and get that confidence back?
Being honest, I didn't. I didn't have the
You did,
confidence
okay.
going into that race. The only thing I can think of is I knew I had the training base, right? And I just went into it with I'm gonna hang with the pace group. When I finally made my decision in the starting corral, I'm gonna just hang with the hang with the pace group and see what happens. And as we talked about, like I lost contact with the pace group in that first half mile because of the way the crowd funneled together. I didn't panic. I just kept looking for that flag up ahead and finally reeled him back in after 2, 3 miles. And then just, it was like, I'm going to hang with him as long as I can and see what happens. And, for whatever reason, the marathon gods were shining brightly on me that day. And it ended up being a really good day for me.
See that, and that's why, like, and I know a lot of people don't race as much as I do, right? And as much as you did this year, but that's why, like, sometimes you just have a bad day, right? Like the weather gods were against you at Lock to Lock, and it wasn't like you were not trying, right? It was the effort was there, the pace was there, but guess what? Your fitness was there as well, right? It
Yep.
just wasn't able to be showcased that day. So, I'm glad you got back out and decided to race at Marine Corps. Katie had a similar story. Lock to Lock wasn't her best, but the fitness was there. And I think Jeff Mull really bullied her into trying to race Buzz Sawyer, right? And so when she decided to do that, and then she came out and PR'd at Buzz Sawyer. So the fitness was there. It was just you just have sometimes you have a bad day, right? And I always tell people that I'm coaching or that I'm talking to, and like, if they have a really bad half marathon or marathon, and I go, well, what if that was just a regular 13-mile run on the towpath on Sunday, right? You wouldn't let it bother you. It wouldn't destroy what you thought about your fitness, right? So don't let just because we put a timing chip on you and a bib on you, right? Like at the end of the day, Chris, nobody really cares, right? About like what I like you did. You probably just told me, and I still don't remember what you ran at Marine Corps this year. You probably just said it, right? Like so, and I don't know, right? That's your time, right? But I know that you're happy with it, and I know you did a great job, right?
Yep.
But I don't know if you ran a 3:01 or a 4:01. I mean, I know it wasn't either one of those times, but like that, I hope that makes sense. Like I care that you did good. I care that you felt good about it, but I don't know what your time was.
Yeah, no, I listen to some other podcasts too, and I love that when the hosts are like, nobody cares, right? It really is just between you and your own watch, right? And I love that about this sport, right? Because you can be great for you if you're happy with your time, and if you're not, then you go out and you work harder, right? To make it right for
Right.
you. And it doesn't matter. We don't
Yep.
have to compare my time to your time, to Samir's time, to Katie's time, right? Like it's just between you and your watch and what you're happy with and what you're working for. And that's what makes this sport so approachable for everyone, I think. I love it.
Yeah, I agree. There's got to be a good balance there, and I think a lot of it is mental, right? Like, okay, I had a bad day. But guess what I'm gonna do tomorrow? I'm gonna put my shoes back on, and I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna run again tomorrow because that's what we do, right?
Yep.
So yeah, I think that was a great thing there to get back on the horse and to get to Marine Corps and decide to run it. Let's go on to let's go ahead and go to 2026 then, Chris. You and I are part of a team in a distance challenge that I think I found it was a sponsored ad on Instagram, and I asked you if you wanted to get involved with it, and you said, sure, let's do it. It's called the Mileage Gauntlet. So if you're out there and you're listening and you want to check it out, go on Run Sign Up and look at the Mileage Gauntlet. It goes from January 1st to January 31st. There's some guidelines you got to follow. I think all the runs have to be outside. I think they need to be under 13-minute mile pace. You guys can go on there and read the all the instructions if you want, but there's a cash prize at the end. And Chris and I signed up on October 7th. And until December 16th, we were the only team listed on this challenge. Now there's one other team listed on the challenge. So I'm not sure if I said it or not, but it's just total mileage. So they'll add up the miles that Chris does with my mileage and then against the other teams there. So Chris and I are gearing up for that. It looks like right now it's a one-on-one battle with from Tails on the Towpath versus Pace Be With You.
I thought you were going to say the other team's name was Take Adam's Money.
Oh yeah. So we don't know who the other group is, but it might be the creators of the event. So anyway, if you're interested in getting in some January miles and you need a little, I guess, a kick in the pants to get outside and get some mileage in, you can go check out the Mileage Gauntlet on Run Sign Up and get a partner and join in. That's the first thing we got going on.
Yeah,
Go ahead,
I think
Chris.
that's going to be a lot of fun. It definitely is going to make it motivating, on those cold, dark January mornings to get out there and get those miles in, and maybe push one or two extra just to keep moving up the leaderboard, hopefully. And I'm still not convinced there's only two teams. I have a feeling there's some stealth teams out there that we're gonna on January 1st find out there's 20 or 100 teams. Who knows? But it'll be
Yeah.
good. It'll be fun to challenge ourselves to compare against the other groups.
Yeah, I hope so. A little bit of competition helps out, right? So I think that'll be a lot of fun. The only bad thing about the challenge is that indoor miles don't count. So I have an indoor marathon in January in Ohio again. So those miles won't count, but we'll work around that and figure that out as needed.
Hopefully that won't be the difference.
Yeah, I know. So other than that, I mean, I'm doing Delaware Wilmington Marathon again in February. And then my big goal, my big project, at least for the first half of the year, is Capital Backyard. So we know a couple people going, and then Chris is going to be our crew for that day. So I've never actually done a live backyard ultra before. So this is going to be new territory for me, but I'm looking forward to going out there and seeing how deep I can go and seeing what I can get out of myself. So it's going to be interesting. I think January and February training will be a little bit different for me this year. I plan on doing some longer, slower runs. We'll see if I can handle that and get to March. And then after March, after that, I have Boston again. And then kind of it's up in the air after that for me. How about you, Chris?
Yeah, so I said to myself as I was closing out 2025, I wasn't going to sign up for as many races in 2026. I was going to, go back down closer to normal. And then of course I look at the calendar and I already have 5 races scheduled for January.
Yep.
I'm going to do the beer mile on January 1st and then turn around.
Wait. That's breaking news.
Oh yeah.
That is breaking news. Cause we asked Chris at the pub run about 20 times if he was going to do that. And he just kept going, oh, I don't know yet. I don't know yet. So, all right, that's breaking news. Chris will be at the pub run. I mean, at the beer mile.
I am committed.
All right.
Shane is going to come down and run it with me. So that'll be fun. And then I'm going to turn around on January 3rd and run an indoor track mile, which I have never done before. So I'm excited to see how that goes. And then towards the end of January, I'm going to do a little runcation down to Key West, Florida. And I've entered into the Big Pecker Challenge, which is a 5K followed by a 10K on Saturday. So 2 races back to back. And then turn around on Sunday and run a half marathon to close out the weekend. So I'll get 3 races just that weekend. So I'm looking forward to that. Looking forward to some sunshine and good times down in Key West to get the year started. After that, my probably a race for the year is going to be the Gorges Waterfall 100K that's out in Oregon. That's in April. That's going to be my first Western States qualifying attempt. So looking forward to going out and tackling a new distance and in a new area. The course looks pretty challenging. It's got 11,000 feet of elevation gain, which will be also a new PR for me for a single day. And then, of course, after that, I'll run the stable of Tulo races. I'm gonna do the last one standing backyard in May. Looking forward to myself a look pretty hard on that one this year. Go ahead.
This will be your third time doing that?
It'll be my third
Yeah.
time doing it,
All
and
right.
I'm hoping third time's the charm. I think I've learned some good lessons from last year and from the final countdown. I think I learned a little bit about myself and what I need to do. So looking forward to giving Samir a little more challenge than I did last year. So where he doubled my
Sounds
mileage. Then of course I'll close out the year with, JFK in November again.
JFK. Yeah. Yeah. JFK is definitely on the schedule for us as well in November. And then we're currently trying to find an October marathon that works for our schedule. I don't think I'm going to be able to run Freedom's Run this year. So there will have to be a new marathon champion when that race takes place this year. So I'll be doing other duties that day, I believe. So we're trying to find one in October. We're not quite ready to commit. We'll announce that whenever I say whenever we're ready, and I mean whenever Katie's ready to announce it, that she's gonna race a marathon. So that'll be a lot of fun. So yeah, that's kind of what we got going on in 2026, and just a bunch more running and a bunch more racing, right, Chris?
Yeah, and I'm also looking forward to keeping the podcast rolling. We forgot to mention at the beginning of the episode, this is our 10th episode, so we've cracked into double digits now. So really, really grateful for everybody who's been listening and providing feedback over the weeks. I know I'm really happy that people actually enjoy it. I've had a lot of fun. Adam, you and I have talked about this on our runs, that it's a good part of the week, and looking forward to keeping it going.
Yeah, on that same note, Chris, after that first episode, I said this is gonna be short lived, man. We ain't gonna make it to 10. And here we are.
Here we are.
We're still going. Before we end this, I posted this on Facebook as well, but I wanted to go over. I did this last year and I thought it was really important for me to kind of let other people know, that their running and their accomplishments kind of inspired me throughout the year as well. Like I said, we probably spent 37 or 38 weekends at races this year. So we saw a lot of pretty cool performances. So I came up with a list of the top 10 running accomplishments that I was able to witness in 2025. So to be there and to be a part of, which I guess number 9 isn't really something that I witnessed, because number 9 was starting a podcast with Chris. But I mean, I witnessed it, but just not at a race. So that one kind of didn't fit in, but I added it anyway. But I'm just going to read through them real quick. The first one was supporting Katie as she PR'd in all her races this year. The second one was at the Delaware Marathon the day after Salisbury. I was able to catch up. Actually, she caught me, the second place female, Katie Brown. She caught me at mile 15, and then I was able to hang on with her to mile 26. So I kind of paced her from 15 on, and she really helped me, and I helped her to get to a second place finish. So that was pretty cool. Our friends Jane and Brad at Marine Corps, them finishing the Marine Corps Marathon. I think Brad had, do you remember, Chris, what was his span between marathons? It was 20 plus years, I want to say, maybe 30.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
had
and
27
then
in my head.
yeah,
I'm not sure if that's right.
yeah, but we could fact check that later. But yeah, I think it was like a 27-year span between marathons, and then just incredible for him to be back out there and run it. And then Jane was out there running a Tulo shirt, so that was really awesome to have her out there pushing it and getting the marathon done. We watched the final finishers of Freedom's Run and then the golden hour at JFK, so that was pretty cool. Samir at the end of the last one standing, he finished the race, and then he won and ran to his wife and kids, and then he came over to me, and I know we talked about how emotional I can be at the finish line, and he comes over to me and gives me a hug. And I said, I'm so proud of you. And then I started to tear up, and he said, get away from me before I start crying. And then he said he had tears in his eyes. So it was pretty cool, like just that finish line emotion there. Watching my son Ryan, he won the 1 mile, last one standing backyard ultra. And then he runs cross country and indoor track at Boonesboro High School. So it's been fun to see his journey this year. Watching everybody finish at the Tulo races, that's my favorite place to be, is the finish line on those days, and just see everybody when they come across and how happy they are. The 8th one is, again, getting emotional as Katie crossed the finish line at JFK in 9:36, which was like 24 minutes below her goal. And then my 10th one was having amazing friends and volunteers at all of our Tulo races and at the pub runs. So yeah, it's, we race and we run. Sometimes we run alone. A lot of times we do group runs. I'm pretty lucky to have the pub runs, and then we got Sunday run group, and I got a good group of people that I can call anytime and be like, hey, do you want to go for a run? And sometimes they say no, and that's fine. But a lot of times we get people to come run with us, and it's cool. So yeah, it's been a good year. And then the last 2 I had were honorable mentions. Mike and Megan, they ran every mile of the towpath in different stages this year. So they completed that, I think, last week. So that was a pretty cool journey. And I think we're going to try to get them to come on the podcast and have them talk about their run on the towpath this year. And then at Final Countdown, we had a 14 and a 15-year-old that completed the marathon that day. So that was the furthest they had run. But it was pretty cool to see them fight through some of that pain, and the Final Countdown's a little bit of a different structure, and we'll talk about that race later on this year or next year before the actual race day. But it's pretty cool. It's a race you can push yourself in a controlled environment, and we had 2 young guys who were able to reach the marathon spot. So those were some of my favorite moments of watching other people accomplish some pretty cool things this year.
Yeah, it was just fantastic to be a part of, and I'm so excited for 2026.
Yeah, me too. I think I'm inspired now to go outside and get a few more miles towards this 2025 goal.
I think you could hit it tonight.
I'll get it tomorrow, Chris. All right, well, we truly appreciate you guys, our audience, for listening. Hopefully you got some good stuff from today's episode on Chris's running in 2025, my journey in 2025, and what we have planned for 2026.
All right. Happy New Year,
We'll
everybody.
See you guys next time.
Safe.
That's all for today's episode of Tales on the Towpath. Thanks for joining us on another run down memory lane and along the C&O. If you've enjoyed the show, be sure to follow, share it with a friend, and leave us a review. Until next time, keep your pace steady and your stories flowing.